started. Who wants to go first? Mary, do you want to do yours first?
Sure.
Unless DPW wants to save her. I mean, it's up to you guys.
Do you have an order that you want
No.
us to go in?
No, whatever.
Go in our own order.
Alphabetical.
There's no agenda yet.
Oh,
Yes, that's what I do.
Chronological by height and then by age.
Sure.
I missed the document.
Never show up alone.
No, I don't think.
I'm not part of the police, I'm just listening.
Thank you.
I'm on D.P.W, aren't I?
Actually, I'm Mary Robison, city engineer. I'm going to start with D.P.W. project, MEM garage, unless you want to do it.
I do.
Okay. This is a capital improvement project requesting to bond for, I think it's bonding, right? $524,000. The DPW garage wash bay is in dire need of repair. Needs structural repairs, structural steel doors, exterior panels, masonry walls, and replacing the roof. And this is really also required not only from a structural perspective, but also a stormwater perspective. When EPA was here was it last June or 2 Junes ago? Whenever they were here, they brought up that we had some stormwater issues, which now we close the door to keep all the water from the wash bay contained within the building, but it really needs some drainage improvements as well.
Sorry, Mary, which garage is this?
This is at DPW. They have a wash bay, which is where they wash
Vehicles.
vehicles.
And do we have a separate one, like at police and the other facilities too?
And I don't know the answer to that
Don't
question.
recall. I'm trying to think back to the EPA audit. I wanna
Fleet manager,
say-
right?
Yeah.
Too.
Richard Avesti, Director of Fleet. No, the fire does it inside, and the police, I don't think the police are doing it inside their own garage. They don't have a separate bay. If they have anything bigger, they bring it over to the DPW. Pretty much everybody uses the DPW one. So,
Rich, I know we just put every problem on your plate, and that's your job now, so sorry about that.
It's
But
okay.
one of the things President Hudson's talked about before, and this is a very long-range project, but the idea of having a facility that would kind of handle every department and being able to utilize mechanics across departments and equipment across departments. So it's just an idea we've talked about. I mean, and that's what came in my head is like, should we have a wash bay at every different facility, or should we have a centralized one, particularly given the proximity of the police department's vehicle fleet to DPW's. So again, I know you've only been here a couple of weeks, so it's a big project, but it's just something to kind of think about as we go forward.
okay. Right, thank you.
Any other questions on that one?
The wash bay,
So you said 500K?
524, yep. That would be design and construction.
How much was the initial construction of the thing, do you know? I mean, how
Of
is
the
this?
wash bay?
Yeah, is this like a whole
I have no
complete
idea.
refurb? Like,
Yeah,
no idea?
How old it is, or
It's old.
It's old.
It's pretty old, before my day.
Is it, this is an ignorant question, is it automated? Is there someone that works it when you go through it? How does that work?
No, it's hand. You go in and it's like you're
You do it yourself?
do it yourself, yep.
Okay. Any estimates on how, so this 500K, how many years of life that puts back into it, or?
We did have CNS look at this for preliminary, so I can ask them that question, how many years? And I'm thinking through your question of whether it'd be worth it to replace.
Right, that's kind of where I'm going with it, yeah, just figuring
I
if,
can touch base with them on that too, although typically if they don't think it's worth salvaging, they will.
they'll say that, they'll include
Recommend
that in
that,
the
right.
assessment when they
They had
originally
us,
talked to you.
we had them do an assessment of the garage, so, but I'll verify that with them.
Okay.
Okay, engineering items, we have lead agency, declaring ourselves lead agent in accordance with seeker for the Onondaga Creek Bank Stabilization Project. This is the Onondaga Creek between Walton Street and Fayette Street on the west side of the creek, so it would be opposite side from the creek walk. There's a parking lot there now. When we did Walton Street Bridge and Fayette Street Bridge, we built a retaining wall for so many feet off each bridge, and we basically are filling in the gap with 120 feet of a retaining wall for public safety. We're also going to be putting 3 art platforms at the top of the bank. So this is just standard procedure for seeker. We have a grant with the Department of State. It's an LWRP grant for this. Although we need a grant extension to complete the construction, and that's in process.
How much was the grant for?
The total project is $640,000, which is already authorized by the council, and it's 50% Department of State.
So what is the request? Sorry, that we extended.
Really just declaring ourselves lead agent, and then
Okay.
after you approve it, we send a letter out to involved agencies, which is only New York State DEC, because we have to get a permit from them due to the proximity of the work to the creek. So we send a letter out asking if they, have their consent to be lead agent on the project.
Pretty standard.
Seeker process, yeah.
Yep.
And my next and last item on the agenda, other than the Nottingham easement, which we discussed last time, was introduced and tabled. So this last item is getting your approval to issue the city's draft American with Disability Act transition plan for a 30-day public comment period. We've drafted this transition plan, which is needed in order to qualify for federal funding. And this is to have a plan to bring all of our ADA curb ramps up to current compliance. So I delivered I think I emailed the D.P.W committee the draft plan, which is pretty lengthy, and then there's an original hard copy in the city clerk's office. And we will be placing this on the website upon your approval. We will place this on the city's website, and we're working with the communications people in the mayor's office to, how to do the 30-day public comment period. They'll probably send emails back with any comments, but we're working through the details on that. And then we'll also notify people that we know are would want to comment on it, like Arise. So they're aware. And we'll do a press release and whatever communications department feels is best to get the word out that the plan is out.
So the ask at this point is just you guys are introducing a plan for how to get up to
The ask at
ADA
this
code?
point is really just to get your approval to put it out for comment. And then after the 30-day comment period, we'll make any revisions, and then we'll come to you for
A final
formal adoption.
adoption.
So what happens with the comments? Do you discuss that with?
We'll entertain them to see whether we need to make adjustments. I don't know, do we have to include any comments in the official plan? This is John Kivlahan, Division Engineer of Design and Construction.
The comments will just be on the plan itself. Once we get those comments back, we'll evaluate them and see if changes to the plan are required.
It helps guide some decisions.
The plan itself in the future has a public comment forum, so anybody who has a issue on a facility in the right of way, if they feel it's not meeting compliance, we do have a form in the plan that can be submitted any time to the city for review.
Now, with this call, is it what prompted? Was it a concern that the community raised, or is it just a precautionary action?
It's a requirement of the federal government that we put this plan.
So they push that, they realize that, they say you gotta be compliant?
Yep.
Right. Okay. Do we know how many structure currently are,
How many ramps we have?
that are not in compliance?
Oh,
Right now, we went out and mapped, there's 6,733 ramps in the city. We have a rating scale, which goes from 5 down to 2. 22% are at 2. That would be the lowest category. They do not meet compliance, and that's typically they're just, it's just a smooth ramp down. It doesn't have detectable warnings. It may have a raised curb. 5s and 4s are typically going to be your cast iron or your plastic with the domes that you see typically downtown. But 22% right now are at the lowest category.
Why did it take so long to get to that federal requirement? Did it just happen, or was it?
I mean, since I've been with the city, ADA compliance has been an ongoing issue. Federal Highway's been pushing for it. The city's been pushing for it. It's just there's so many corners. I mean, it's 6,733. The city's had their annual sidewalk program for years. It's ongoing maintenance. I mean, it's going to take years without significant capital investment to complete it all at once. And that's what the federal government wants to see. They want to see continual efforts to bring your facilities up to standard. They're not asking us to do it all at once, but we do have to show continued progress, and the city's done that for years through the accessible sidewalk and the contracts that the city's issued.
No, I know that. I understand that. My question is more of a curiosity as to why it took this long, and ADA has been here a while. You know, was it because
why it took this long to have to formulate a transition plan?
To be compliant, yeah.
Well, we did go to training a few years ago regarding this. I think it came to light for all the communities, and we've been working on it. What happened to bring this to a high priority is that somebody did make a complaint about one of our sidewalks, and it ended up that it was a National Grid street cut. That was the sidewalk was restored, which didn't meet code, so we had to go out and make National Grid fix the sidewalk to make it compliant. And as a result of this, the federal government said, hey, you know, we need to see your transition plan. So they've been working with us to you know, help us through the process and get to the finish line. So we've taken a lot of time. This plan was not put together overnight. It took a huge amount of effort. So that's why we are now coming to you with the draft plan for public comment and future adoption to become formally compliant.
And was the plan done in-house? Was it?
Yes.
It was done by in-house engineering?
Yes.
So
we had some interns also.
Do you have I mean, I know it would have to be ballpark, but an estimate of what, so at this stage, we've identified all the ones that are non-compliant, yes?
We've evaluated all the ramps, basically via Google Maps. We haven't gone out there with,
Right.
to measure levels and everything, but we did a visual inspection via Google Maps and basically ranked each ramp according to that review.
Where are we in the process now? Do we have any estimates about what it would cost to get us up to being, you know, where we'd like
Fully
to be?
compliant?
Yeah, ADA compliant, or, you know, what kind of capital investment that would take, or how many years that would take, or is that the next stage of the
We
plan?
don't have an estimate. We have been, you know, as is required by law, when we mill and pave a street or have a tip project, we always have to do the corners. And then there are other corners that we do with our sidewalk program. So we have been, as John said, advancing to achieve compliance throughout the city. This is just a formalization of our process.
When do we, is there an estimated time as to when you want to wrap all these up, say public comment goes through? Is there a time frame that you start at this point and you want to finish it at this point? Or
In terms
will
of
it-
adopting the plan or in terms of
Once the, say, once the plan is adopted, going through,
complete all the work?
exactly.
We don't have an estimate of that, do we?
We don't have an estimate, and it's going to take years, and because standards change all the time, you may find out work that you did 5 years ago is no longer compliant, and that would be circulated back around again. So it's an ongoing process. The federal government just wants to see that we have a plan in place as a tool going forward. We didn't put any dollar amounts in here just because we've gone to training. If you commit to a certain dollar amount, then federal government wants to see you spending that dollar amount every year. And based on budget constraints, that can be up, it can be down. So within the plan itself, we've mentioned under mill and pave contracts, utility work, federal aid, that we are upgrading our corners regularly.
And theoretically, like, say, however, where would the funding for this have to come from? Would it be from city or federal?
Both.
Both?
Yeah,
Yep.
currently, under the D.P.W's sidewalk contracts and mill and pave contracts, they replace corners under federal aid projects, mill and pave projects. We're replacing the corners also under federal aid.
Is there like a cap for the federal funding per year? Or
No,
you can just ask for whatever it's needed and see if you get it?
It's all a process through the Syracuse Metropolitan Transportation Council. They set up the federal transportation improvement program, which is our federal and state funding on capital projects. And then DPW also gets other CHIPS funding that goes towards road recon. So the TIP projects kind of fluctuate from year to year depending upon the project and the funding available.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Or no? The one you held?
Nope.
Hi there, Ann Fordak from DPW. Let's see. Neil, you're probably going to have to come up too at some point.
Want to switch?
Let's see which ones we have here. Do you want to start with Clinton Street two-way conversion project?
The Clinton Street two-way conversion project will convert Clinton Street between West Jefferson Street at its northern limit. Clinton Street two-way conversion project will convert Clinton Street from one-way operation to two-way operation between West Jefferson Street at its northern limit and Tallman Street at its southern limit. So it sounds like a lot of space. It's actually, the bulk of the work is really just 2 blocks between Jefferson and Adams Street. South of there's not much going on. It's just striping and signs, but those 2 blocks sort of downtown, there's a number of items that need to be reworked, some signal work that we're coordinating with New York State because they own the signals on Adams Street. So we have had this fully designed, and we are coming back to you for approval, since this is a CIP project, and getting ready to hand this off to engineering to bid this out.
Questions?
Timeline on construction?
Timeline's intended to be this season. This is a relatively light touch. We're trying to take advantage of existing infrastructure and make this, I don't want to say a speedy process, but something that is accomplishable within one construction season. So we're taking note of the developments that are happening down on the corner with the Salt City Market, as well as ongoing discussions with our partners at the Downtown Committee and the other property owners in the area. So there's been a lot of outreach and a lot of discussion, and we're at a point now where we're ready to move forward this construction season.
Yeah, so this was, I believe this was the one that I was at the Downtown Committee meeting where everyone was exactly as you say, hoping that this could be a speedy project and they wanted to get this through. From your perspective, what are the kind of, what are the benefits and possible negative impacts of this? Like I guess from my perspective, yeah, what's the big draw benefit of doing this, and where do you see potential problems?
So if we back up and zoom out a little bit, a feasibility study was conducted in 2013 and published in 2014 by the request of the city via SMTC. So they had a consultant come in and look at the downtown network in terms of our one-way streets. A lot of streets were converted to one-ways in the 50s and the 60s with the idea that people are coming in their car in the morning and then they want to leave as quickly as possible in the afternoon, and everything should be designed around that. We've since come full circle now, and we realize that that might not be the best way to treat our public streets. So the study was conducted to make sure that the numbers worked, you know, the queuing volumes, the level of service, the traffic counts, to make sure all of that data was crunched first and make sure that this was feasible and that it wouldn't, say, break the network somewhere else and create some unreasonable amount of delay on a street we weren't thinking about. So this was deemed feasible in 2014. We had it looked at again, specific to Clinton Street and fast-tracking that. Last year, it was again deemed feasible with updated traffic counts, updated pedestrian counts. And so one of the goals here, and one of the outcomes that comes from this, is that you will have increased connectivity as it relates to Armory Square, specifically Walton Street, but also we'll have an opportunity here to add a few parking stalls. We'll have an opportunity here to have on-street bike facilities without really totally disrupting the corridor. So we're improving access for all modes without shortchanging really anything that's happening right now.
So, sorry, go ahead. Is the plan to widen Clinton? Are you going to have to?
No,
any wider?
The plan is to, again, a relatively light touch. We'll be dealing with some pavement and striping, but we're not going to move curb lines. We're going to work within the existing dimensions and basically just reapportion the roadway dimensions. So, for instance, there is reverse in angle parking now in parts of Clinton. That'll be transitioned to standard parallel parking. It'll be a 2-lane road, 1 lane north, 1 lane south. Will not be a significant departure from what exists now or other streets around it. So it'll be a typical application. It won't be something new or crazy.
I'm thinking that, will they have to change? It seems too narrow to me around the Clinton Street Pub, Funk and Waffles area. Is that, well, they have both sides of the street parking at the moment. Will that have to change?
So that portion will be phased in after this project. The ultimate goal will be to take the two-way conversion up to Fayette Street. With this project, it's stopping at West Jefferson Street. And
Didn't
so,
you say it was between
Adams?
Jefferson and Tallman? Right there.
phase 1, this phase is West Jefferson Street to Tallman Street.
Okay.
Phase 2, further down the line, would be Jefferson North 2 blocks to West Fayette Street. And so to your point about dimensions and everything else, yeah, there's a few on-street parking spaces there. There are design opportunities that we're working through, but
the goal is to eventually to get there, but at another.
Exactly. The
in
goal is
next
to get
phase.
there.
Okay,
and
I understand. Sorry,
pair that
I was
off.
confused there for a second.
So my question is close to Councilor Driscoll. I know that when you take Clinton toward Tallman by the coin there and Catholic Charity Building, it becomes really narrow, and the building are right there.
Then Tallman is in.
How is that going to work with 2 lanes?
So there is space there. There's sufficient space between the curbs to have 2 travel lanes with no on-street parking. It's no parking down there right now due to its commercial nature. You have a lot of loading and unloading. Maybe not right now since Coin is gone, but there is another proposal to put the building back to commercial use. Again, it's about 2 lanes wide, 2.5 lanes wide right now, and that stretch, it's just one way. So we had an engineering firm come in and take a close look at this and make sure that the design met all applicable standards, and that this wasn't just our idea that we're going out and, you know, striping it all 2-way and changing some signs and being done with it. That's definitely not the case. And that section, yes, it is narrow, but it does meet all the requirements that it has to.
Yes, I'm just asking that because when I go through there, there's a lot of community members that are, you know, for lack of a better word, you know, have no place to go and are just sit there, you know, basically staying there. And, you know, are you considering that at all? Or?
So this isn't projected to change traffic volumes dramatically. We're not expecting to see thousands more cars traveling through here each day. This isn't going to be anything really outside of the curb lines. This is just going to be the asphalt in the street. We're not touching sidewalks or building facades or anything like that with this. So if it's in the street, it's part of this. If it's outside the street, say the Catholic Charities building or anything along that corridor, nothing's really going to change for them.
So I'll weigh in as a former resident of Clinton Street and lived there for a while. So the fact to me that it is a one-way makes it significantly more dangerous because people drive a lot faster on a one-way than you do on a two-way because you have more room and more lanes. So just for me, having sat at that intersection of Walton and Clinton, I mean, people would probably go twice as fast on Clinton than do on Walton because it's one way, so people go through there. The other thing that happens all the time is people go the wrong way down the one way. I mean, I probably saw 10 times someone just almost get killed because people go the wrong way. So that's another huge safety concern of mine that I think this addresses. And then I think while there will be some loss of on-street parking in front of some of those businesses, again, I lived there for 2 years and I found street parking every single day I lived there. So yes, you might have to go a block away, but there's plenty of parking. There's also 2 garages within a 1-block walk. And I think, you know, even for those businesses in the long run, it improves it because the street is safer and traffic's slower. The sidewalk cafes become more usable. They become more pleasant. I mean, if you ever sat outside on Walton Street, it's a lot nicer than sitting outside on Clinton Street, and that's partly because traffic's going a lot slower and it feels like a more pedestrian-oriented thing. So I'm a big advocate of this, and I thank everyone for their work on it.
Thank you.
Next one.
Great.
All right, I just have an encroachment here for 252 Wolf Street, and it's just a roof structure, eyelet roof structure. It's going to extend 14 inches into the right-of-way, and then the trim would extend 4 inches into the right-of-way. And everyone reviewed it. It looked like no one had any concerns or impacts, so we'll be bringing that.
Okay.
Not a crazy one. Let's see. I'm not sure if this one came beforehand, I can't recall, but this is an agreement with Upstate Medical Center for 50 monthly parking permits at the Madison Irving parking garage. And it looks like it's just authorizing the agreement for Upstate to have those spaces.
Okay, and it's market rate.
I believe so. It is $80 for monthly pricing. Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay, any questions on that? Okay.
Last one I have is, it's a sidewalk one, and it's authorizing an additional $20,000 for the current fiscal year to pay our sidewalk vendor. Essentially what happened is that we spent $20,000 too much on sidewalks, and typically we could roll it into the next fiscal year, but we're not able to do that, so we have to ask for $20,000. There was an increase in condemnations this year, which my thanks to all of you, actually, for that. It helps improve the city, so I don't mind it. But we definitely are condemning more sidewalks and improving the city by making it more walkable. So we did go over a little on that. Is Ballard. condemning.
They're condemning the sidewalk as well.
Chris Attinger is the one who condemns our sidewalks, but that's the vendor we use for the repairs.
Okay, double check that because in Strathmore, we had an issue where Ballard was taking calls with the condemnation, and then they turned around and did the work.
Oh, okay. I'll ask Chris about that one. I hadn't heard that. Huh. But no more questions on that?
Okay, is there a water item or no? You're just visiting? Okay, all right, well,
Thank you.
very much, appreciate it. So we can just roll right into the business license meeting at 2 o'clock, so, all
Oh, okay.
right?
Is there a list of one-way streets that were converted to two-way? In here? The white tire lane one-ways, they should become two-ways?
Yeah, it's in the 2014 downtown two-way study.
Shouldn't be.
smtcmpo.org.
Like all in the urban core?
Yeah, this was only looked at downtown, but not a lot of them have been
This is the
converted.
next thing, right?
This is really this will be the biggest one.
Right.
I think Calvin should be
So
two-way.
it is permit
Keep the Calvin one-way.
requirements.
This is all you know.
You want to say?
Jim's printing out the list. Jake, are you gonna have any help or are you up there by yourself?
You know what? I'll give it a shot.
You have a list?
I do.
Because it was so empty. I just pulled up. Business one.
Do you have a staff lock phone on?
Was that close?
Sorry. I don't know. Somebody was walking out of City Hall. I was like a block away, but they had like a, it was kind of like a police coat that said staff law enforcement or something like that.
I got a ticket.
I was like, I don't know. I do have a twin, but he wouldn't have been walking out of here.
Did you play baseball in school?
Yeah,
For
Corcoran.
what year were you?
I graduated in 03.
I was 05. I feel like I recognized you from that. I believe like 1 year, but
Valley Baby Ruth, maybe, or I don't know.
I played Geddes.
Southside American?
I played Geddes.
Oh, got us. Okay. I don't know.
What do you think
I'm
of
old now.
What do you think of tonight for presidential? Yeah.
You think he'll get it?
I think, Bernie was holding a quarter of the electorate, 6 candidates in there.
You don't have 2 copies of that.
I think if anything,
You don't have 2 copies of that list, do you?
Warren and Bernie.
I do not.
And now that there's
That hurt
one
Bernie.
sharing by
Yeah,
the
yeah.
He's gonna hear
Yeah.
it. He's one of ours.
I think
I'm happy.
that is something good.
I think Elizabeth takes a lot of his stuff. I'm just.
So Jake, did you go to school with
I know exactly where they're looking anything. It could be there.
Dowdell's, the last name sounds familiar.
Brian Dowdell?
Early, man.
Yeah.
It could be their puppy.
Latoya and I were the same year.
I'm a less fights.
My sister
guy.
was a police officer. She was also an avid fan of Corcoran players.
All the hours you spend.
Gwen
fighting,
Dowdell,
less
you know
hours
her?
you spend with-
Like all of them.
The last name is
based on what the other.
ringing a bell.
Huh?
Kind of know what you
Yeah,
can
because my
do.
nephew, he was a big guy. He was
More
a
that guy.
big guy.
I talk about what you can't do.
I just think, though.
Brian, his name was Brian Dowdell.
She really did the Mr. Dowdell that was in the school district. We would always.
Two different Dowdells.
Let me go get my things because I have to run from
Two
here.
different families.
Yeah.
At Henniger, he used to always be like 9,426 periods until graduation. Yeah.
Swinging golf somewhere, sipping coffee somewhere. In the heat.
How many?
I know I will be.
Right? Can I have a piece of paper? And please.
I know I will be. Thank you, sir.
All right, we're going to get this around. Yeah, pass it around. All right, so we're going to get the...
2-pager?
It's, I don't know. I think it's like 2 or 3.
I'll figure it out. I want to.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to get this meeting started. So this meeting is a meeting to review the business licenses that are required within the city of Syracuse. The goal of this really is to just do a review to see if there's licenses that exist that are potentially outdated or are under-enforced or don't necessarily provide a benefit to the consumer. Really just trying to send the message to the broader community that we're always trying to evaluate as government to figure out if what we're doing makes sense, if we should be doing stuff differently, if we should be growing the government to do tasks that we're not doing now, or if we should be shrinking it to do things that we shouldn't be doing. So we have a list here of a certain number of licenses, so I'll just turn it over to you, Jake, and we can take from there, and you can walk through. So really what I would like to see is walking through what this particular item, the reasoning for why it's here, if it's used or if it's not used, and if there's a benefit to keeping it.
Sure. I kind of echo your sentiment on I feel like we should have an attitude of being open for business, and we want to make things easy. We don't want to make this a burden. So going through this, I think, could be beneficial. So we'll start with the amusement device operator. That is used for arcade games, and it's from a distributor who actually places those machines. So it's used for the video games that are actually being placed at a Chuck E. Cheese or an arcade or a Dave & Buster's. Looks like the ordinance was last revised on that in 1988. Issue probably. I don't have the final numbers from this previous year, but we probably do around a dozen of those, so maybe 1,000 or 1,200 in revenue annually. Same thing with the amusement location.
So, and then just backing up, I mean, the original goal of it, is it to make sure they're not rigging Chuck E. Cheese arcade games? I mean, what would be the policy benefit to that?
As for the origin of the ordinance, I can't really speak to why or how that came into existence, but sitting here today evaluating the need, potentially could be one that we eliminate.
Okay.
The amusement location, same thing as far as the ordinance section and ordinance last revised date. This is the actual location, the actual place that rent these games, that have these games available. Closer to probably 100 or so, give or take. So anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000 in revenue.
So where are these mostly done?
Your arcades, so your Dave & Buster's, your Chuck E. Cheese, your Apex. I don't have a full list in front of me, but I could certainly gather that if needed.
And I'm not trying to put you on the spot, and so you might not know this, but is this typical for municipalities to do this? Is that a normal fee?
I do not know.
What do we do to give does somebody have to go there?
So these are applied for. Most of these licenses were typically from a finance. So we have a licensing coordinator, and they were placed into the central permit office for a centralized location to take these applications in and issue them, and have a spot for the public to go, or for these applicants to come in and meet. So they just apply, and we process their license, and then we issue it. Our licensing coordinator is here. If I don't know if there's specific questions for her on that, but that's the extent of how these are handled.
Do we ever deny them?
Not those two types, no.
And so again, there's no enforcement. I mean, there's nothing.
Well, I mean, yes and no. I guess some of these places are subject to other types of inspections. If they're serving food and drink, so that they are captured in other license types, like a certificate of use potentially. But as far as inspecting the games, I mean, sure, we do a safety inspection if there were any electrical issues on something, but short of something being a hazard to somebody physically, I mean, we're not doing anything else.
So for example, here it says that for the amusement device operator, it say that it's $100 per year.
Yes.
So walk me through that. Is that like every year they have to come back and redo it over?
Yep.
Right. And if they don't, how would you know they not? What's the penalty? How do you punish that? Or how do you enforce that?
Another great question. I think some of the enforcement is a great question on how this has been enforced historically, how we continue to enforce it today, which I guess leads to why we're sitting here having this conversation, to try to make sure that this makes sense for us and for our city. So
we're losing money, man. You know that? I think with this stuff, we're losing money.
What do you mean, losing money doing it, or losing?
No,
money
losing money as in
not
money
getting
we should be getting by not enforcing it. Right?
Maybe, but it also seems arbitrary. It's like saying if you have a milkshake machine, you
Right.
have to pay us $100 a year to have a milkshake machine.
Right.
It's weird.
But this is already.
Everything on the books shouldn't be on the books either, so.
But this is how we make money, right?
But we're not in the business of making money. We're supposed to, we would do
I understand that.
fee if there was
I
a
understand that.
benefit.
I understand that the city has a certain rules it operate, right? And somehow we say we are doing A, let's do A. That's what I'm saying. And if we're not doing it, let's not do it. But in this instance, we had said somehow that this money is supposed to be coming to the city, and it's not.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Counselor, I think your point, I mean, there's two options. One is that we should decide this fee makes sense and we should take it seriously and we should enforce it. That's option A. Or option B is this fee doesn't make sense, we're not enforcing it, let's take it off.
Right.
But they shouldn't do something where you have a fee and we just ignore it.
Right.
That's like
right.
the worst.
And
nobody ever looks at it.
right, right. And all right, I'll stop.
I have a question here. Okay, I'm looking, Jake, when you go to bowling alley, right? And it's $10 per year.
Can we pass the mic to President?
Oops. Sorry.
But we have a dance school that's teaching children a little bit of dancing, and they're paying $150 a year. And it seems a little off balance to me.
I think I can speak to, let me see if I have it in front of me. The bowling alley, I believe it applies to like how many lanes there are to, Pam, do you know off the top of your head if that?
I think, sorry, we have a copy here. So it's $10 a year, and then for 6 lanes or less, and then $1 for each additional lane. So
Right.
we
Right.
got 12 lanes. It's, yeah.
Right.
So I mean, I get your point. I didn't
Yeah,
create these.
I hope you know, Jake, that we know you inherited all this, so I'm personally not.
I will say this. I mean, at some point, bowling alleys historically in the city probably were all over. Many in each neighborhood. I think there's only the one left. I mean, but thinking back, there were at least 3 on the south side or in the valley at some point that I can remember. But
There
and
were.
they're all gone now. So maybe there was a need for that at some point when I don't know.
Tax just pushed them out of business.
But my concern still is, because I know some of these small dance schools, and they're paying more than probably everybody on this list, and that's a concern for me.
How many dance schools paid the fee?
Are they really paying? It's not enforced.
Yeah, it's not really being enforced. It looks like that ordinance originated in '93, and I don't think any of them are registering.
Do you have the originating date for all of the ordinances?
Some of them.
So could you give me the dates, please?
Yeah, amusement device operator and location, 1988. Ordinance section 5-41. Bowling alley I do not have, other than the ordinance section 5-28. You want me to just go through them all? Dance floor entertainment, section 5-1, 1993. Ice Show 1993, Section 5.1, Juice Bar 2009, Section 5-156, Milk and Milk Products, Section 14-27, 1967.
Wow.
Motion Picture Theater, Section 5.1, 93. Same thing for musical shows, 5.1, 1993. Pigeon Trapping, Section 11-1, 1964. Sentry Dog, Section 9-146, 1969. Theater or stage production, back to that blanket 5-1, 5-1, 1993. I think that was all of them.
Okay, because so there's one in here, and that was a juice bar that was in the 2000s. All right.
Three per year? Oh, come on.
Right. Okay. All right, so why don't we, sorry, we'll pick up, I think we were on bowling alley, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess there's only one, right, in the city now at this point. So the revenue is probably less than $20 or something like that.
Yeah. Plus, we're in Apex on a sea of view. If they were to do any, like, actually that space actually has changed from, I think, 3 different tenants. So each time they've gone through different building permits because they've changed the layout slightly, and the branding and everything. So we've been in that space a lot. Sitting here, I'd probably say from my viewpoint that could be one that could go.
Do we have a date when the bowling alley was put on this fee?
I do not have that available here. I'd have to look into that more on the date. Again, I don't see anybody else from police or fire here, so the only thing I would add on top of any of my comments is that unless there's something that I'm not aware of, that they're like, we need this, I do have some notes from them, and that is not one of them, but I just want to point that out, that I'm not speaking for fire or police if there's something specific that they feel we need, but I do have some notes on other ones that, and that was not one of them. The next one would be the dance floor show and entertainment. All these are covered under the entertainment ordinance, and same thing, that was from 1993, and somewhere around 40 to 50 of these, so 6,000, 7,000 range in revenue, I believe.
So that one, I did get a note today that this is used for adult entertainment locations, and
Right.
so that they do feel like there's a need for that to be able to go and inspect to make sure that everything's okay with that. So from my opinion, I think that's one we would want to keep.
That one we would, because I know it's used for bars too, for the entertainment license. If they have a DJ, they have to have this license.
Okay, so I think that one makes sense to keep. Okay, dance school.
I know we hit on that a little bit already. Again, I think that's one that's not.
Yeah,
I know when the last one that registered not being enforced.
And to me, sometimes it makes sense for a government to say, we're validating that this person has the expertise to be able to provide that service. And respectfully, I don't think any of us have the dance knowledge to be able to say this instructor knows what they're doing or not, right? I mean, we're just not equipped to be able to do that. Rita does, but she's got busy with other stuff, so. So yeah, again, this one's probably one you said doesn't have necessarily revenue associated with it currently.
Right.
And it's just a kind of arbitrary requirement, in my opinion.
Next on the list would be the ice show. The note I have is that this was put on the books to enable police and fire to inspect Disney on Ice at the County War Memorial. So that allows us to have city personnel in the building, doing for safety reasons. So,
and I know you're not the police and fire, but is this required to do that, or are they able to go in on their own besides that? And that's kind of the question I would have.
That I can't answer. I'm not sure. I don't know if we needed to create this to allow for that or not. So that's something we can look into.
Okay.
The next one is the juice bar. Again, this was new in 2009. It's not used often, but police wants to keep it. It's for places that essentially opened like after hour nightclub or something, so they don't serve alcohol. They might not have music or whatever, but there's nothing to regulate something from popping up and kind of having those. So the juice bar is there as a way to kind of maybe regulate a place like that might pop up. That's really all the information I have on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a question we can ask them, I guess. But to me, it would say if there's a disruptive establishment, they would have the ability to go in anyway. I don't.
Well, I think they felt like there was a loophole that allowed people to open nightclubs kind of unchecked, unregulated, just because they were saying we don't serve alcohol. But again, the exact origin and what's in the ordinance and how many we've had to use that for. But
the last one was in Joe's neighborhood.
My district?
Mm-hmm.
Which one?
It was one on the corner of, I want to say by Durston's, up in that area.
Do you like juice?
We got comedians.
But I mean,
Well, like, what does it mean? Like, does the original grain pay the $250? Like, it's weird. It feels capricious still. It's like, let's leave this law that nobody follows so that we can arbitrarily enforce it against somebody who's annoying. But wouldn't that violate other rules than just being a juice bar without a license?
They did it for a specific place.
Mm-hmm.
so I think let's find out a little.
ice cream trucks operating.
We do.
We do.
Didn't the last one you squad is business?
Well, so Skippy's is around, but they operate kind of like a food truck now, where they go to locations. They don't like drive the neighborhoods anymore.
Skippy's is
There is the one-
minimal, but there's another one
There's one on the south side
that goes, through the neighborhood.
plays like
Yeah, it is.
play like rap.
Yeah. So again, there are. So there are a couple ice.
I didn't make this up, but I think there was like a Mr. Dingaling.
Yeah, it was.
I believe
Mr.
that's what it
Dingley.
was.
Yeah. And now I forget the name of it, but you've seen it, right?
Yeah,
Going
I've
through the south side. Yeah.
Mr. Daly?
It
That's
was-
the name
it
on the
was.
truck?
It was.
Again, a lot of these ones in particular would be part of the new food vendor ordinance too. So, it'd be similar to any food truck. I mean, whether you're serving ice cream or whatever, tacos.
So we can just, yeah.
But I think just to talk about the origin, I think that kind of dated back to when there were actual many milk trucks and companies that were delivering milk to homes. And but I could be wrong, but that's what I'm thinking.
That makes sense.
The next one is motion picture theaters, 1993. Again, not sure the intent of why that was created. I mean, I know at one point we had theaters throughout the city, but it would have been before the 90s.
Do we have an estimate of revenue for that?
Not many. I mean, maybe a couple $100.
Oh, I can get rid of all of these.
Okay.
Where's the Paris Theater?
That's in James Street.
No, Paris.
It's gone, Joe.
Oh, okay.
It's gone.
Is it?
Henson,
Where?
Over on Erie Boulevard.
behind the old, adult Paris do it.
Ah. So can you help me though, anybody in here? So that Paris, is it over there by Thompson Road, off of Thompson?
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm trying to understand this because it's so close to the DeWitt line. We always get tagged with all of that. The adult show theater, and they call us about that. Is that city or is that DeWitt?
I'm pretty sure that's all city, right, Ken?
Yes, good afternoon, councilors. So Thompson Road is the city line. So you come center of Thompson Road, west is everything in the city.
Because I know when I'm driving Thompson, it picks up closer to Chuck E. Cheese. So how do we get responsible for that other stuff?
So as Thompson Road goes north and south, that, you have to look at it running north and south. So everything west of that center line is city-owned, up to, I believe, Salt Springs, to where it leads right up to H.W. Smith and Lemoyne College on Thompson going south. And then north it goes, we end at Burnett. Actually, it's the next block up where the light is leading into Bristol.
That's kind of weird to me. Okay, I get it, but we always get caught for that nasty theater, and they be calling me, and I don't think it belongs to us personally, but okay.
Yeah, we're stuck with it. Real quick, councilors, I know Councilor Rudd mentioned the juice bars. Here are the 3 provisions for a juice bar. Does not serve alcohol or have an alcohol beverage license. Does not prepare and serve food except as incidental part of the business. And the business has live or recorded music. That's how the police department defined juice bars back in 2009.
So your Jamba Juice wouldn't fall under that?
Correct.
So how many juice bars do we still have here?
None.
Yeah, I think it was created for specific reasons, if and when.
That meet that criteria, no.
Because I know they had one on Burnett, too, that they never fully kicked off the ground. And it still says juice bar.
Okay. Not aware of that, but we can look into it.
I don't think it's open, but I think the one they target this for was in your area. So, okay.
Okay. So we're on musical shows.
Same thing. That's not really in use. It'd be similar to the motion picture theater. Not sure the intent on the origin of that. Next one would be the pigeon trapping. Again, that one dates back to the 60s. I would imagine we had a pigeon problem at some point with them on statues or on, I don't know, cars, like I'm not sure.
So I do know in real estate it comes up on roofs of buildings. Sometimes they'll hire someone for that because they don't like to poop everywhere. But again, the city's not in a position to be able to say this is a qualified pigeon trapper. I mean, we don't know what we're doing, right? So.
Yeah, and I don't think we have the problem here anymore. And this would fall under the DEC for regulation now, so they can have it. But I'll also say I think because of and not that I'm like a bird expert, but I think with falcons in the air, I think it kind of controls the pigeon population, and I don't know. I could be wrong, but
sounds like you're a bird expert.
So.
Speaking of birds, when we get rid of all these, can we add a rule that you can get a permit to have a chicken or two if you fill out the right paperwork and have the right size coop?
That's a zoning.
Oh, zoning. Oh.
You can have a potbelly pig.
All right.
They eat ticks.
We got a lot of comedians at this table. We got a bunch of comedians sitting at this table.
All right. So we have, I don't know if it's on your list, but we had residential bankruptcy sale. Is that on yours?
Yes. I wasn't aware that we even had that. I don't.
What's that even mean? You got to pay to go bankrupt?
Absolutely.
I'm not sure.
Especially when they sell it.
I'm not sure if that's requirement under New York state law or not, or if it's covered by another ordinance that we might have. So I'm not, well, I think I need some assistance on looking into that from other departments on if it's a requirement by state law.
Okay.
Right.
So when you click on that online, it says non-residential, and that's what comes up. So I don't remember when we talked about that, which one we were referring
Non-residential.
to.
Okay. So
I think it just means so businesses don't keep having a bankruptcy sale every other week. That's what it is. Again, miniature.
okay. So let's do a little more. And legally, if we're required to have that under the state, I think is what next step is. Okay.
We can jump.
Sentry dogs.
Again, that's one that goes back to 69. I don't think we've had one in a long time. I can't speak to, maybe we had a lot of junkyards or people that had sentry dogs and they had to be registered. So if we responded, we knew that that I don't know.
We don't know what they were thinking.
Cujo was there. I don't know.
$3.
Yeah.
But in 69, I mean, you got to think about the times. That was a whole different era. We don't know what they were thinking, and $3 went a long way. So.
Okay. I feel pretty good about that one being able to drop. Theater or stage production?
That's also under the that section 5-1 kind of entertainment ordinance in 1993. But what I do have is that, again, similar to the police at the Disney on Ice, that this enables the Syracuse Fire Department to enter and inspect places like the Red House, Palace Theater, Landmark, Syracuse Stage. Again, without them here, I don't know if there's another avenue for us to legally gain entry to these places without something like this on the books. So that's what would have to be answered.
I'm not an expert, but I don't see it in here. But almost all venues have an occupancy level. And they could get in that way, right, if they felt they were over occupancy.
Yeah, I believe that would, I mean, the fire prevention office is monitoring that on weeknights, weekends. You know, they're checking establishments like that anyway, so possibly.
I believe that's part of it, but I also think this is something that gives the alert to the police or the fire ahead of time that something's going to be happening at, say, Red House, for example. So they don't have shows every single weekend, but at least if they're aware that, you know, say Little Women's coming there, they apply for a license or a permit for that show. Now they're fully aware that there is a show going on there.
Do we have a revenue estimate for this?
I do not. So that's the other issue, is like the kind of the enforcement of it and how we're monitoring it. How do we even cross-reference if when there are shows that they're actually doing it, and, you know, so.
But I think it's a little deeper than that, though, Jake, because last year we had this kind of an incident. Ken, you may remember it. They had pulled a permit to do a party at a supposedly event place over there off of Lodi. And when they pulled the permit, they found out that the guy that owned the building was not in compliance at all. Remember? Yes. And they had to shut it down. So this might be a good tool.
This is like a theater production? Or was it like a party?
It was an event.
I believe it was an entertainment license counselor that they applied for, and once that goes to the appropriate parties to review, they did an inspection with fire and or police, and there was no way they were going to allow. I think the application came in on a Wednesday, and they wanted the party on Friday or Saturday. Those two departments jumped through hoops, and they got out there and they said there's no way we're going to allow the public into this.
So maybe it's something we look at that, depending on what the revenue estimates are, you know, that we still want them to notify us when they're having an event so we can make sure it's safe. But, you know, a lot of the smaller stage productions are really tough with money and they can't do it. And we want people to have cultural events like this and theater events. So to the extent that we can make it easier for them to do it, where maybe they're just emailing us, letting us know that they're doing it, or whatever the best practice would be there. Because the other side of the coin is, if you're going to do something illegal and cram too many people in a theater, you're probably not going to apply for a permit anyway, right? So we're kind of doing this thing where we're only really going after the people that are already trying to follow the rules.
Many of the licenses we just went through, all the ones that are covered under that section 5.1 from 1993 that kind of fall into the category of entertainment, I think are being captured by the entertainment ordinance. So some of these might be duplicative since that has come on to the books. So if they're required for the entertainment license, I don't think they should also have to do this, which seems like many of them aren't anyway, and we're not enforcing it. So if we're using the entertainment license for that, then I think many of these other ones can go.
Okay. Questions? Joel?
So are they paying this one, the last one? Is anybody paying it?
I don't believe so.
I'm sorry, I had something. Is there, I know you have tried to do it here. Is there a way you can just maybe summarize the frequency of use, maybe? You know, how often, like, you know, that will really help us.
Yeah,
right?
so I think what I would suggest our next step be is, you know, we'll add another column saying, here's the revenue associated with it, which would then tell us how often people are applying to Councilor Majok's.
Yeah, we can go through, you know, last year or whatever time frame you want and get you the number issued and the revenue.
Okay, and then I think the next step, obviously, what needs to happen too is a review from the police and fire, and whether that makes sense for us to sit with them or however they want to do it. And then I think we'll have all the information we need to know to figure out which ones we should keep and which ones we shouldn't.
And also, when you look at the revenue, as the council has said it, try to tell us what year was this fee set? Like you did it here for some, say, for example, if we charge 75, was that based in 1994, $75, which is, you know, this is 2020 and stuff like that? Could you clarify that as well?
Sure, I think most of it will come from the last revised ordinance date. It shouldn't have changed outside of that, but we'll be sure to include that.
And then I would just say the parting comment is, if there's things here that aren't on this list that we should look at, that's another thing. Or similarly, if there's things that are unlicensed now that the city would benefit from, you know, we should be open to that too. So I guess to the extent that we can be helpful with any of that, definitely open to it.
For sure, and we've discussed that about, you know, beyond just the list that you went through, making sure that we're looking at these as a whole, and making sure there aren't any that we should add into this discussion, but also, like you said, maybe there's something that we're not currently licensing. So we are exploring that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That was my next question.
All right, great. Well, thank you a lot, Jake. I appreciate your help.
Thank you.
All right.